Week 5 in the NFL kicks off with a battle of two NFC West rivals, the Los Angeles Rams and Seattle Seahawks. The Rams started their season off strong and jumped out to a 3-0 record, but suffered their first setback to the undefeated Arizona Cardinals.
Didn't do a good enough job getting our guys ready to go, but fortunately for us, we've got a chance on a short week to be able to respond the way that we expect to, the way that we want to, and that's exactly what we're going to do moving forward.
It was a disappointing performance for a team with Super Bowl aspirations, but they'll need to turn the page quickly against a Seahawks team coming off arguably their best performance of the season against the 49ers on the road.
We're all in this thing together. You know, we're all fighting for the same thing. That's us to win. That's to perform at the highest level and do it together. And it's such a special team.
Wilson and Stafford both figure to be in the MVP conversation all year long as both stay healthy. But keeping pace in the NFC West is what these franchise quarterbacks are focused on. Who will lead their team to victory in the Emerald City? Week 5 is about to get underway. And to help set up the game tonight, let's welcome in the host of the Pick Six podcast, Will Brinson, and one of the cavalcade of super friends, John Breech. Gentlemen, great to see you. Rams, as you saw in that piece, looking for a response here after getting spanked by the Cardinals last week. What kind of a reaction are you expecting from a team standpoint tonight, Will?
I'm clearly muted because, you know, who doesn't mute themselves on a video program? I think the Rams will come out a lot crisper than they did last week, Jeremy. The problem, which I think what you saw last week, was Matthew Stafford, Sean McVay, the whole crew kind of hung over from that Buccaneers game. Remember, going into halftime against Tampa Bay, with Los Angeles leading, McVay was losing his mind. It was clearly like his mini Super Bowl, and they just weren't prepared for the follow-up against the Cardinals, a team I think they probably thought that they had their number. Now you come back and you've got a second divisional game. Reality hits in. You're 0-1 in the division. You're no longer in first place. You're no longer undefeated. You know, you tangled with the best in the NFC, in the Bucs, but you need to get this win. Otherwise, all of a sudden, you're 0-2 in the division. And with the Seahawks defense, it is extremely exploitable for the Rams in this spot. So I think they come out aggressive, vertical, try and put the Seahawks in an uncomfortable position, and I don't mean the back of a Volkswagen. Instead, what they do is they force Seattle out of the comfort zone, and they make them try and keep pace with the Rams, and that's how you can really crank up the pressure. I expect a very crisp start, crisper than my start to this segment for the Rams.
Brinson, I thought you were trying to tell us that the Rams offense is going to go silent tonight, but apparently you just don't know how to work a computer, which is not surprising at all, since you have like 4 assistants there who usually handle your mute button. But you know what, though? Look, I'm not going to put too much stock in that first loss the Rams had on Sunday. They've had a bunch of emotional games to start the season. The home opener against Chicago was in prime time, the first game ever at SoFi Stadium with fans. Then they had to go on the road, play a tough game in Indianapolis. Then you come back and play the defending Super Bowl champion Buccaneers in Week 3. And it was just a matter of time before they had a letdown. It just happened to come in a divisional game against an undefeated Cardinals team, which obviously isn't the best look. But you know what? They've done a good job of bouncing back under Sean McVay. Last season, they were 5-1 after losses. So I don't think there's going to be any issue with them getting ready to play tonight. And you know what? Sean McVay, we just heard him say he's excited to be able to play on a short week. That's probably because he loves Thursday night football. Since he took over as coach, this team has averaged 33 points per game on Thursdays. So he will have them ready to play, and I don't think we're going to see the Rams lay another egg.
Will, the universe speaking to you. Before we came on today, we asked the gentleman how their day was, and Will said, it's about a 7 out of 10. So that's the universe coming back at you, my friend, trying to get you to pump up that number. All right.
It's a 9. I'm sorry.
There we go, yeah. Okay, with the Seahawks potentially having no Chris Carson for this one, you saw that he's going to be a game-time decision. They could be running back by committee for the workload here. It makes that matchup between Russell Wilson and Aaron Donald even more of a factor. I mean, these guys have seen each other a lot. They know what each other can do. But Donald is a guy who tees off on the Seahawks. Are you expecting that again tonight, Breech?
I kind of am. It almost doesn't matter who the running back is when the Seahawks play the Rams, because the running back, the person who gets the most rushing yards for Seattle, almost always ends up being Russell Wilson. I think the Rams have such an athletic defense. They're so good at taking Russell Wilson out of his game. I think one thing that the Seahawks thrive on is the pocket breaking down, Russell Wilson running around and making something magical happen with like a 40 or 50-yard touchdown pass. Well, that kind of stuff doesn't happen against the Rams because Aaron Donald, because that defensive line is so strong. What usually happens is that the pocket breaks down so fast that Wilson takes off and scrambles downfield instead of throwing the ball. He's done a great job of running and scrambling in these games against the Rams. I think his past 8 games, he's averaging nearly 40 yards per game on the ground. But in many of those games, he's going under 200 yards passing. So the Seahawks offense just has had a tough time moving the ball. And, you know, with Chris Carson out and putting this entire offense on Wilson's shoulders tonight, I have a tough time seeing Russell thrive against this Rams defense.
Yeah, and when you look at it, right, so it'll be running back by committee, but it'll probably be entirely game script dependent. With Chris Carson, you can play him out there when you're trailing or when you've got a lead or in neutral situations because he's a good runner between the tackles. He can bust it outside, and he's actually a better receiver than people give him credit for. I can't envision a situation where if the Seahawks are down 14, it's the Alex Collins show, right? It's going to be DJ Dallas out there. They're going to utilize some Travis Homer in and around. That you look at the targets and how they distribute it depending on the game script, and it changes dramatically. So people plug and playing Alex Collins if Chris Carson is out, and I think Chris Carson's going to be limited anyway. We're talking about a herniated disc in his neck, right? That is not an ideal injury. I would expect that if he even plays, he's limited. So when I look at this matchup, I'd be a little wary of just throwing Alex Collins out there expecting a ton of carries. And as far as the Aaron Donald thing goes, and to Breech's point, maybe the Russell Wilson over rushing yards is a good prop to look at. When you have Jalen Ramsey probably playing man-to-man against DK Metcalf most of this game, and you enable Russell Wilson to get a lot of open looks where he breaks out of the pocket and then takes off downfield because they're playing that man coverage on the back end. Aaron Donald will be a problem for the Seahawks tonight, as he is for everyone every night that he plays.
Well, and if you have that matchup with DK Metcalf, I mean, Tyler Lockett's had a couple of off weeks, so maybe it's a week that you put Lockett in there and get his prop going for this one tonight. Of course, with Seattle, it's not just Russell Wilson. Matthew Stafford has been in MVP form in this Rams offense. Perhaps some words that you never thought you'd have associated with each other. Stafford MVP. And he's facing a Seahawks pass defense, Will. They are just not that good, are they?
Nope. They're not that good. And Stafford, hey, look, I like to put Hall of Fame with Matthew Stafford, so I'm all about putting MVP with Matthew Stafford. Oh, yeah. That's a Pete Prisco running joke. He texts me every time Stafford misses a throw. Not a Hall of Fame throw there. Ha, ha, ha. Look, I think Stafford, this offensive line has protected him really well. Stafford has developed this incredible rapport with Cooper Kupp. What I'm interested to see tonight, Jeremy, is whether or not we get a little squeaky wheel treatment for old Robert Woods, who expressed expressed a little bit of outrage on the field about the loss last week. He hadn't seen a ton of targets, hasn't been heavily involved. I think they'll want to get him involved. We saw this earlier in the year. Sean McVay came out and said, we need to get Deshaun Jackson involved. And the very next week, and then the week after that, they fed Deshaun Jackson targets. He had similar words for Robert Woods this past week. And given how bad the Seahawks pass defense is, just an overall disastrous unit, I think you could really see Matthew Stafford try to laser lock in, get old Bobby Trees some looks, get him happy, and then, take some shots to Cooper Kupp, Deshaun Jackson. There's a lot of people to deal with on this Rams offense. Could be a problem for Seattle tonight.
First, let me say to Matthew Stafford, Brinson putting you in the Hall of Fame is not a compliment. That guy literally will put anyone in the Hall of Fame. If you have thrown one career touchdown pass, Brinson thinks you should be in the Hall of Fame. I think he even has Ryan Leaf in the Hall of Fame. But you know what? You guys mentioned the Seahawks pass defense. It's not just their pass defense that has been horrible this year. Their rush defense. They've given up the most rushing yards of any team in the NFL. Look, you can be bad at one of those and survive, but it is hard to be bad at both of those things and survive. It's a miracle the Seahawks are 2-2 with as bad as their pass defense and their rushing defense has been this year. And that's going to create a huge problem because if you look at their 2 losses, they played 2 teams, the Vikings, the Titans, who could switch things up. Obviously, the Titans, Ryan Tannehill, Derrick Henry. The Vikings had Kirk Cousins, Alex Madison. I think Dalvin Cook was out that game. And so that's what the Rams can do to you. Darrell Henderson could have a big night, but you know what? The Seahawks say, we're going to stop Darrell Henderson. Then, boom, Matthew Stafford goes out and throws for 350 yards. So you look at those 2 losses again. That was a game where the quarterback finished with more than 300 yards passing and a running back finished with more than 100 yards rushing. And so I won't be surprised if the Rams are able to do both of those things to the Seahawks tonight, because their defense is just a total shell of what it used to be.
Well, and Stafford averaging over 300 yards a game so far this season. Let's get into making the good folks some money then, starting with you, Breech. Give me your top player prop for tonight.
I just sat here and knocked the Seahawks defense, but my top player prop is over a half interceptions for Matthew Stafford. So for this prop to hit, he's just got to throw one interception. I love the plus money here. He's only played one game on the road this season. That was in Indianapolis. He threw an interception in that game, and now he has to go into one of the most hostile environments in the NFL. Seattle is loud. The 12th man is real. I could see some sort of miscommunication at once or twice in this game with his receivers, and I won't be shocked at all if he throws one interception, maybe even two, and that over hits easily.
Yeah, that's a terrible pick, Breech. Trash pick. I'm sorry, it's a bad pick. Although I guess he has thrown an interception in 2 of his 4 games. But no one disparages Hall of Famer Matthew Stafford. Not while I'm around here. In fact, I'm going to take Stafford's over, but it's not going to be passing yards. I'm going to take Stafford's over rushing yards. It's 5.5 yards. He's only hit that once this year, but we saw last week against the Cardinals, the Rams actually used Matthew Stafford on a couple designed runs, and granted it was late in the game and they were trailing, but I think they saw a little something there where they can get him out on some like read option stuff, and he can just take off around the edge and pick up a first down. Again, all you need is 6 yards. I think he's going to get that. I think they give him he'll find it on a scramble or at least one designed run. He's a lot quicker than the old trigger man Jared Goff, and I think Sean McVay will continue to use Stafford's legs in some key spots, particularly on third down opportunities. Give me the over there.
All right, over Stafford, 5.5 yards rushing. Okay, this game went from a pick-em to the Rams giving 2.5 points here. The over-under set at 54.5, second highest total of the week. Bills and Chiefs is the highest, sitting at anywhere from 56 to 57. So let's parlay the totals here, gentlemen. Will, what's your play on the spread and the total?
So I'll take the Rams minus 2.5. Obviously, I would prefer to get the number as a pick 'em. I don't even mind if you want to go with the Rams on the money line just because it's a Seahawks game in Seattle in prime time, which means it's going to get #weird. But I do like the Rams in this spot. I think Sean McVay has a good history against Seattle. I think Seattle is a little bit of a paper tiger. Their win over San Francisco, if you look at the box score, they played that game 10 times. Seattle probably only wins it 2 or 3, and they got one of those last week. As far as the total goes, it's a huge number, but I like the under. I think our pal Mike McClure actually gave out the under on the Early Edge podcast, another great podcast in the CBS Sports podcast family. But I agree with him because if you look at this game, it screams tons of points, tons of points. Oh, these guys are going to wing it all over the place. But you got to remember, Sean McVay way more conservative than people give him credit for in terms of going for it on 4th down, in terms of kicking field goals. And we know about Pete Carroll. He's all about that field goal life. So I think you get a couple of stops in the red zone, and all of a sudden you go from, you're getting 21 points to it's 9 total points because of those field goals. And that can be the difference right there between the over and the under. I'll take the Rams and the under.
Brinson, I feel like you should start wearing an Undertaker costume on this show because you only take the under. I think that is 3 or 4 weeks straight taking the under. But you know what? I can't make fun of you because I think this is the 4th week in a row. I'm going to go with the over. Look, this is an incredibly high over-under here at 54 points, so it does worry me a little bit. But if you look at the 4 Seahawks games this season, the winning team in each game has averaged 29.8 points. So that's kind of how I feel this game is going to play out. The winner's going to score 30 or 31 points. So it just depends on how close you think this game's going to be. If it's going to be 31-24, that's the over. If it's 30-27, that's the over. And that's how close I think this game's going to be. So I think it's going to go over, but just slightly. And as we talked about earlier, the Seahawks have one of the worst defenses in the NFL. I think the Rams will be able to go up and down the field on them. As for the point spread, I actually agree with Brinson. It's this low of a number at 2.5 on the road in a hostile environment. I like the Rams money line. I kind of like the point spread, but things get a little wacky in Seattle. We saw a 1-point game, I think, last year where the Rams missed a field goal. So these games just are incredibly crazy. But you know what? I'm going to take the Rams. I'm going to take them to cover. I'm going to take the money line. I'm all in on LA tonight.
All right, Will Brinson, John Breech, super friends to all of us here on HQ. Thank you very much, gentlemen, getting us all teed up for Thursday night football. And, of course, For more from the NFL, your daily fix is the Pick Six podcast. The latest edition, which dropped today, features Tyler Sullivan with Will as they dig into this Thursday night football matchup. The best game, the best props, DFS plays, all up for discussion. You can catch it before the game tonight. Download and follow the Pick Six podcast wherever you get your preferred podcast audio.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.